Everyone. Now we are on the very last piece of this lecture. We're going to talk about some accessory organs of the eye, and what that just means is parts that are not the eyeball themselves, but are still involved in the eye area in some way. And the first is the lacrimal apparatus. An apparatus is just a complex term that just means more than one structure working together. Then we have the extrinsic eye muscles, extrinsic as in on the outside of the eye, and they're going to be the ones for opening and closing the eyelids and also moving the eyes around. Okay, let's start with the lacrimal apparatus. So when you see this word lacrimal, you've actually seen this word already because we had the lacrimal bone. Remember I was saying that for the lacrimal bone, the way you kind of identify that bone is because it has that hole in it. That's where the tears drain. And so the lacrimal apparatus includes all of the structures that are related to making the tears and draining the tears. All of that together is the lacrimal apparatus. Now, if you're looking on the lateral part of the eye, okay, so not here's the midline on the lateral side, whenever you see fluffy texture like this, that is a gland, and so this is the lacrimal gland. The function of the lacrimal gland is to make tears, so it'll produce those tears, and then it's going to drain the tears through these little ducts onto the surface of the eye. They're going to wash over the front part of the cornea and the sclera, so wash over the front part of the eye, and then they're going to drain into these little dots. Okay, these tiny little dots, those are the lacrimal punctum. Punctum like is a tiny dot, right? Lacrimal punctum, and that's going to drain into the canaliculi. So a singular form of canaliculi is canaliculus, but collectively they would be the canaliculi. So canal as in like a tunnel that it's going to go through, the canal that moves the liquid along. Then it goes into the lacrimal sac. And then notice that the lacrimal sac is only the enlarged fat part at the top. Once you get further down and it narrows down here, it has a new name, and that is the nasolacrimal duct. Nasolacrimal duct. Naso like nose, lacrimal duct. Because then from there, that's going to take the tears and drain it into your nasal cavity. And that's why if you're crying, you kind of get a stuffy nose, and that's because all of those tears are being drained into your nasal cavity. Okay, so again, lacrimal apparatus refers to all of those structures that make and then drain those tears. And the tears are important to keep the surface of your eye nice and moist. And those of you who have ever had dry eye symptoms, you really see it. It feels quite irritated. Okay, now on to the extraocular muscles. Extra as in outside of it, and ocular as in eye. Okay, extraocular muscles. Let's start with the levator palpebrae. Move this up. Levator palpebrae superioris. A lot of mouthful, but again, all the words mean something. Levator because it elevates, it opens the eye. Palpebrae. So palpebrae means eyelids. Okay, and superioris because it's on the top. So that this muscle right here, this is the muscle that connects to your eyelid and opens your eyelid. Okay, so just to look at this real quick, this muscle here, the circular one, that's the orbicularis oculi, and that's the one that goes in a circle, and that's how you squeeze your eyes shut, like when you're blinking. That's the orbicularis oculi. But the muscle that opens up your eyelid, like that is going to be the levator palpebrae superioris. And when you look at it on the models, sometimes it's missing. So if you look at a model and it doesn't have two muscles on the top, just one, that's going to be a different muscle. That's going to be called the superior oblique muscle here. So if it's a second one kind of overlaid on top of that, that is going to be the levator palpebrae superioris. Again, palpebrae means eyelid. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the extrinsic eye muscles that are used to move the eyeball around. And And there are 6 of them. There are 4 rectus muscles and 2 oblique muscles. So you shouldn't be familiar with this term rectus. Rectus means straight. And so what that's referring to is that those muscles will run straight parallel lines from the base, from the back of the orbit all the way to where it attaches to the eye. Whereas oblique means at an angle. Those are the ones that are going to run kind of diagonally to the back of the eye, to their attachments. Okay, so let's start with the 4 rectus muscles. Again, rectus means straight, and they're going to run straight lines all the way from the back to the front. And so those are just named by their locations. We have the superior rectus muscle, we have the inferior rectus muscle, the medial rectus muscle on the medial side, and the lateral rectus muscle on the lateral side. For those, I also want you to know which cranial nerves innervate them to control them. 3 of them are going to be controlled by the ocular motor nerve. That is going to be the superior rectus muscle, the medial rectus muscle, and the inferior rectus muscle. So these 3 right here, those are all going to be controlled by the ocular motor nerve. Oculo as an eye, motor because they're moving, so the moving of the muscles. And then we have another one here, the lateral rectus muscle. The lateral rectus muscle is going to move eyes out, and so they're controlled by a different nerve that is called abducens. Abducens as in abduct. It abducts the eye. So that is going to be controlled by a different cranial nerve. Abducens nerve. Okay, on to the 2 obliques. We have the superior oblique here. Okay, so in this picture, it's only showing you the tendon for the superior oblique, but the superior oblique will continue on at an angle. And then we have the inferior oblique, and again, at an angle there, sort of at a diagonal. And for the superior oblique, the tendon for the superior oblique is going to run through this structure that's called the trochlea, and that is like a little pulley system, so it kind of runs through, and so as the muscle is contracting, it'll kind of pull it that way. Okay, so because the tendon runs through the trochlea, that's where the name of the nerve comes from. So what's the name of the cranial nerve that's going to control the superior oblique muscle? That's going to be the trochlear nerve, and it comes from the fact that that superior oblique muscle runs through the trochlea. That's where that comes from. And then the inferior oblique right here, that one is also going to be controlled by the ocular motor nerve. So the ocular motor nerve controls 4 of the extrinsic eye muscles. It controls the superior rectus muscle, it controls the medial rectus muscle, the inferior rectus muscle, and the inferior oblique, all by the ocular motor nerve. Then we have the 2 other ones that are controlled by their own special nerves. That is the lateral rectus. Lateral rectus is controlled by the abducens nerve because it abducts the eye. And then the superior rectus muscle is going to be controlled by the trochlear nerve because it runs through that trochlea. Okay, so now we're going to get on to the actions of those extrinsic eye muscles, which is a little bit complicated. I'll try to break it down as much as I can. We talked about it slightly already, so let's start with the easier ones. These are movements, just sort of linear motions. Let's start with the lateral rectus. The lateral rectus is going to be on the lateral side, and all it does is it pulls the muscle away from the midline, so it abducts the eye. Again, that's why it's called the abducens nerve right there. And then the medial rectus, which is the one going to be on the medial side, it just pulls it towards the midline, or you could say that it adducts the eye. Okay, so out, lateral rectus, in, medial rectus. Okay, those are the easier ones. They make sense. now we're on to the ones that are challenging. So let's look at these kind of slowly. So first of all, we have the superior rectus muscle. The superior rectus muscle, remember that's this one right here. Now the superior rectus muscle can pull it up, but as it pulls it up, it can also pull it medially, right? So it can pull it kind of up and medially also. And so when you're looking at it, it's going to be up and sort of towards the midline. So up and in is what I like to say. So the superior rectus muscle is going to be up and in. And then the inferior rectus muscle, that's this one down here. And that one can pull it down, but it can also pull it medially also. So you can pull it down and then rotate medially as well. So when you're looking down, you can kind of roll it in as well. Okay, rolling in towards where your nose would be medially. Okay, so the inferior rectus muscle is down and in. Superior rectus muscle is up and in. Now, here's where it gets a little more challenging. That going to step up our game here. So for the superior and inferior oblique muscles, because they are oblique at an angle like that, that's going to change how it rotates the eye. So for this one here, for the superior oblique, just to review, that's this one right here, look at the tendon. For the superior oblique muscle, it's going to be attached up here, but it kind of goes through that trochlea. Okay, so attached up here, runs to the trochlea, and then as it contracts, it's going to rotate it down. Like it'll rotate in this orientation, right? So that is going to rotate it down and laterally, so down and out. Okay, so think of the muscle right here. Here's where it's going to attach. It'll run through the trochlea, and then as the rest of the muscle contracts, it kind of pulls on it. Remember, muscles only pull, they never push. So when you think of the muscle contracting, it'll rotate the whole thing down and laterally, down and out in this way. Okay, whereas the inferior oblique, that one's running like this, and when it contracts and we pull on it, so think of like it's pulling on the eye, it's going to rotate it again at an angle because it's oblique. It's going to rotate it up and out. Okay, so can you kind of imagine the muscle? Okay, so again, this is opposite of, this is the other eye, but if you imagine the muscle at an eye, so it would attach right about, attach here, and as it pulls on it, it's going to pull it up and out. Okay, so kind of something to hold on to, because that's a lot, something to hold on to. So when you're talking about the rectus muscles, the ones that are straight, notice that the inferior goes down, so they kind of are the same. So superior up, inferior down. For the rectus muscles, the up goes up, down goes down. For the oblique muscles, because of the way that they're oriented with that angle there, it's opposite, right? So the superior oblique muscle is going to go down, and the inferior oblique muscle is going to go up. Okay, kind of remember that it's opposite. Sometimes remembering that it's opposite will help you remember what it is. The other thing to notice is that all of the ones that say rectus, so the superior rectus muscle and the inferior rectus muscle, they're always going to be rotating it medially. So again, towards the nose. So if you're up, it's going in. So up and in, that's going to be superior rectus. And down and in, again, still in, that's going to be the inferior rectus. So if you see turns medially or something related to that, turning like towards the midline, that's you're gonna think rectus. And if it's turning laterally, that you're gonna think oblique, and then do your little opposite there. Okay, so the oblique ones turn laterally, and the rectus ones turn medially. So that's a bit complicated. If for those of us who need some more visualization, some pictures and videos to watch, I do have a pretty good video that talks about the movements of the eyes, and it kind of shows you. I'm going to put this in the supplemental resources part of the lecture videos. Okay, so you might want to check that out. Okay, so at this point, let's practice some of the questions I might ask. I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video and try to answer these. And then I'm going to talk about them all together. Okay, welcome back. So first, this one. I kind of notice I'm kind of starting off easier and working my way more challenging. First of all, which eccentric eye muscle is going to pull the eye medially? So if when you're crossing your eyes, both of your eyes are going to go to the midline here. And so which muscle does that? That would be the medial rectus. Okay, so remember that the medial and the lateral rectus, they do like exactly what you think they should do. So the medial rectus will pull it medially and the lateral rectus will pull it laterally. Now here comes a little bit of a kink. So which muscle is working depends on which eye you're looking at. Okay, so for example, if you're talking about the right eye, which would, for me, that would be this one here. This is my right eye, and my right eye is looking left. Okay, so my right eye is looking left. That means that my eye is going towards the midline. So which muscle would do that? Again, the medial rectus muscle. But what if I'm talking about my left eye? My left eye looking left. Okay, so if my left eye is looking left, that means that it's not going towards the midline, it's going away from the midline, and so that's going to be the lateral rectus muscle. Okay, so notice that which muscle is working depends on which eye when you're looking to the left or to the right, right? So this one's looking towards the midline, that would be the medial rectus muscle. This one's looking away from the midline, that would be the lateral rectus muscle. Okay, next one. Which one is innervated by the trochlear nerve? Remember, it's called the trochlear nerve because it goes to that muscle that runs through the trochlea, that little pulley system. That would be the superior oblique. And which one rotates the eye up and laterally? So let's work a little magic here. So when we see this laterally here, I want you to think oblique, right? It's one of the oblique. And if it is an oblique, that means that you do the opposite, you do the switch. Okay, so laterally tells us that it's one of the oblique muscles. And so we're going to do a little switch. If it's going up, it must be the inferior oblique. Okay, so kind of like create a little strategy for yourself and then you'll get it right all the time. Okay, that's it for now. See you later. Where's